I was recently listening to a podcast from an old friend of mine, Dr. Akiva Perlman. I knew him before he was famous. And he said something on this podcast, and it really just blew my mind, and I want to share it with you. He said it's so frustrating, so difficult for him to have conversations with people that are pretending to be perfect. He said, you're putting your need to be perfect on me, the listener, and that's so uncomfortable. And I really just never thought about it that way before. You know, we're all putting on an act to some degree, putting our best self forward, and, you know, to some degree that's even appropriate. You know, we're not meant to share all of our challenges, trials, and tribulations with people who we're just, regularly friendly with. But it's possible for us to, pretend to be somebody that we're not. And not necessarily to be vulnerable and courageous in conversations with real people that deserve to really hear our truth. I always thought about that as like the person is suffering from perfectionism, and that's a very real thing to suffer from. But what I never thought about is, what's it like to be the listener of somebody who's trying to be perfect? I never thought about what we're putting on others when we try to be perfect. And then I started thinking about that in the context of our relationship with Hashem. As we head towards Elul now, I started to think about what's it like from Hashem's perspective when we are pretending to be perfect, when we're not willing to have the real conversation. And especially because he already knows everything that we've already done. It's like, why are you putting your need to be perfect on me? I never expected that from you. I created you to be imperfect. I created you to have the opportunity to do tshuva and all of the wonderful things that come along with imperfection. And so it's probably a deeply uncomfortable feeling for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have to watch us pretend to be people that we're not, especially when he's willing to accept us for who we are. And I think that's the yesod of tshuva, that's the yesod of Elul. It's opening up and having a real conversation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu about the things that we struggle with. And that really is the tachlis habriya. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us to have a dwelling place in the world down below. Are we really inviting Hashem into our lives if we're pretending to be perfect? Is this not a way of pushing Hashem out? And how deeply uncomfortable is that for him? So maybe this Elul, let's do something a little bit different. Maybe this Elul, let's be really honest. Let's abandon our own notion of perfectionism, not only because we're suffering, but more importantly, because Hashem is suffering. He doesn't want to be part of this conversation. He doesn't want to have those quote-unquote needs put upon him. He wants to engage in a real relationship with us. And we want to engage in a real relationship with him. And that, I think, is the real yesod of tshuva.